appreciate Barb asking us to come out, and I say us. I have Kurt Bagby with us, the Parks Director. So anything you don't like about what's going on is his fault. And then he's gonna blame John Bennett and say that's what he that's what he took. Yeah, so I'm sure everybody knows John's history, and he was our Parks Director for, oh my gosh. Wow, now I gotta behave.
Now he'll put
start
you on my
over.
knife.
So anyway, Barb asked us to come out and talk about the park project, and I think particularly, if I understood her correctly, the idea of a splash pad. You want me to do that?
All right, well, it's different, I guess.
Yeah.
Also about the splash pad, and that's why I asked Kurt to come out. So I tell people all the time, it's not my job as a supervisor to instruct or direct anybody in the county. As a member of the Board of Supervisors, the only time you have any authority is when we're in a board room meeting with 3 members. And then as a board, we make decisions. Other than that, we have our directors for all the departments who run the departments based on the instructions the board gives them, right, as a board. So we have directed, if you want, our staff at the parks to go after this grant for the OHV staging area. And we've been trying to do this for at least a couple of years. It has been a bureaucratic nightmare, but what I wanted to make sure you guys understand is we've given that direction, and I don't tell Kurt what to do on a day-to-day basis, but we stay in contact all the time. Of all the directors, there's a couple other ones, but Kurt and I talk almost every day. And I can assure you, what we all want in the county and at the Parks Department is for this project to get going. And Kurt is gonna tell you a little bit more about what he is dealing with on a day-to-day basis, but it's just, again, a bureaucratic nightmare, but remember, we're asking the state for money. So we have to jump through their hoops, and that's what we've been doing. And I'm gonna ask her to tell you a little bit about that. The other thing I wanted to ask, and it's become a little difficult in this 2-year time period, to kind of follow and get a good sense of what the community of Bouse wants. And it may just depend on the crowd that I'm in front of at any one given time, but we were given the impression a couple years ago that, like, we want nothing more than a splash pad. We've never been able to promise a splash pad because the first part of the grant is gonna be the OHV staging area. And then the idea is to apply for other grant funding from a different fund within the state parks to try and get the splash pad. But I'm gonna say now, if that's what the community of Bouse wants, because I think people are afraid to talk sometimes in public, but I've had people come to me and say, please don't do the splash pad. It's not gonna get used. It's not gonna get used enough, or it's gonna, I wanna support the community of Bouse. This is part of my district. When I say I wanna support the community of Bouse, that doesn't mean individuals, because one person wants a splash pad, that's not enough to move that project forward. So I just really wanna get a sense that truly the majority of the community does or doesn't wanna go that direction. But we do plan to apply for grant money, but I'd hate to go through that. And we're talking, believe it or not, for a splash pad, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. Each one of those implements is like 40 grand or some dumb thing. And that's not counting the underground work that has to be prepared to make it work, right? And then you have to have a place, you have to either have a place for the water to go, or you have to have a recycling system. And I think we've fallen into the let it go, because the recycling system would be a fortune. Now you're dealing with chemicals and other things like that. So I'm gonna ask Kurt to come up and talk about the specifics of what he's working on at this moment. And then if you guys have any questions, happy to answer them. But that's kind of where we're at this point. And as he's walking up, I also am aware, and I don't know if it's this group, I don't think it was the Booster Club, although you may be doing it too. We got kind of thrown a curve a couple of years ago. We came out to a thing at the park, and we found out they wanted to give us a check and contribute towards the splash pad. And we're like, whoa, we don't give us any money. We don't even know if we're gonna have a splash pad. That was 2 years ago. So again, I know there is support for it because they were raising money, and if they've still got that money available and we move forward with it, we'll be happy to add that into the project. But that's been another one of the things I wanted to make sure people are aware of, is that we never accepted any of those contributions because we're not in a place to do that yet. But let me have Kurt talk to you about the specifics that he's going on. Julie?
About the money, we have money in the
Careful, you're
bank.
being recorded.
I know, we've got money in the bank.
You have what?
We have money in the bank.
Okay.
That's where it went to.
All right. La Paz County Parks Director, Grandpa. Grandpa Kurt Bagby. He just became a grandpa.
1 week ago.
It's a lot funner being a great.
You got 4?
I have 2 daughters, one just had a baby and the other one's 2 months behind. I think they were competing. So I have good news and bad news. The good news is there's a chance we'll have a splash pad. The bad news is all the kids are gonna be grown up by the time it's done. So that's just the way it seems to be feeling right now with this. But let me just start from the beginning and explain where the problem started. So when I was starting out as the park director, first day I met with one of 7 Johns we have here. I met with a few of them, and the idea was to take up the momentum from the cotton gin project that was supposed to happen and get it there in the Bouse Park. And no problem. I was on my second day and I was already out there ambushed on this project, which was great. I'd never done a grant at this size before. So we get started on it, and the first, I suppose you'd say, shock I had was the first grant was for the design, engineering and design. That was $298,000. I didn't think it would be anywhere near that. It took about 1.5 years to get that done.
That wasn't for like electrical drawings and plans, that was for like circles on a piece of paper of where things are gonna go. But we didn't pay it, they pay it. It hurt so bad to know that money was being spent, but that's what we had to go through.
That was the master plan.
It was the master plan. So that was the Bouse master plan, as it was called, and that was done through the OHV grant. So then, that took 1.5 years, and then we applied for this OHV grant now for this second cycle. A couple weird things happened, and there's been some tightening down on the grants lately. Some grants, they've done some auditing and found that they were writing checks for grants that they didn't even know where the money went. So of course they started kind of tightening down a little bit. And I believe the OHV grant, I think there's about 8 million in their account for the OHV. However, each grant itself or each project is capped. So if you think about it, they're like, hey, we met with Mickey, there's plenty of money in here, let's do this project, and it was gonna be a staging area, some RV sites, camp host spot to watch the staging area, possibly fixing what would be a pickleball court, just a few niceties to really improve the park, which would be great. The problem is, a couple things happened during that time, as inflation went up 20-something, 30%, whatever went up, and the grant went down. So my staging area costs, in order to start from scratch on now when we're talking about a staging area, I'm sure everybody here knows, but I'm just gonna make it clear, it's a big enclosed area where people can safely park their vehicles, go on the Peace Trail or wherever they wanna go and leave their vehicles behind, and to some degree our camp post will kind of watch it and at least be there in the area so nothing happens. That's the idea of it. It's a big parking area. I don't know if anybody here has seen the one out by River Island Market going to Havasu. That's very impressive. They did a very nice job. I'm hoping this will be at least a little bit comparable, because that's big. Have you guys seen that one? Yeah, it's impressive. It's called River Island Market upriver above Parker, north of Parker.
Where'd the chicken
The big chicken.
be? Yeah, okay, I'll look at it.
So now I am capped at $1.3 million for this grant, and the staging area itself was 1.5 million. So I'm kind of stuck now. Fortunately, we have a great guy, Don Braska, who's our public works guy. They're gonna come in and do the groundwork and the leveling, everything for $200,000, just so I have enough money to do the staging area at 1.3, because that was one of the cheapest things on there, broken down. So now at one point, the grant was going to be all of these things all wrapped into one. Now it's gonna be phases: staging area, And then the men's and women's locker room, or whatever you wanna call it, bathroom with showers. And then possibly, so it's gonna have to be broken down in phases. So every day, it seems like the rules change. And they're not really blaming state parks because that funding is coming from elsewhere also. I mean, it's just not really easy, to stay in line with what I think is going to happen. So at this point, what's going to happen to begin with is we're gonna get, that's the other problem. The last signature needed to release the money on this grant is the Arizona Department of Transportation. You think they're the money holders because it is, the OHV is based off of ADOT. We don't really know why that hasn't been signed, but I mean, I think I wrote this grant a year ago, and I've been approved, the grant was written, everything's fine, it's approved, but we're still waiting for the money. So there are some things that can be just a little bit frustrating, as recipients wanting to get going, and it's easy, I'm fine taking the blame. I just don't know what else we can do any differently than what we've done as far as getting it written as fast as we can. There's just little kind of hoops we have to jump through. Now, as far as I agree with Duce. I've had, I believe, more people approach me about the splash pad, people not really being that interested in it. But that, whether it's there or not, doesn't really matter to me as far as long as the majority, the majority of the people here, the functionality of it, the people here get what they want. And that's what's most important. The problem we have with the splash pad is when you're looking at the function of this town, most of the activity is based off the winter recreation, the Peace Trail, that was a tough one, sorry. And then to sit there, and I'm sitting there trying to sell it, well, the kids, they can go over there and play in the splash pad, in the winter. They're just, it's just not an easy thing. And I also worry about some of our guests that live in the desert needing somewhere to shower. I mean, that's going to happen. So I'm not gonna be discouraging. We're gonna do what we can. It would have to be, it does not fall under the guidelines of the OHV grant. It would have to be under something called heritage funds. It can't be under SLIF, basically heritage funds. That's all that's left. And the other thing that's happened, there's another couple grants we work with in town. It has nothing to do with this, but there's a grant that I'm upgrading the park in town. And that grant, they just recently found that they wrote a check for $3 million, and they have no idea who the recipient was. So it's just making everybody tighten down and making everything more difficult on some of the weird things that happened over the last few years. So whether, there's a state lake improvement fund in Parker, the park in Parker, we were gonna use the state lake improvement fund. That used to be around $300,000 to $500,000 max. Right now, they're looking at our max, receiving on that is maybe 70, 80,000. The heritage funds used to be, I don't recall what that was, but that's down to either 100,000 or less. So it seems like, I don't know what the reasoning is, but it seems like all of the monies are going down, and they're, what we're able to apply for, which makes it hard. I can answer Duce's question. I think it was 450,000 for a splash pad. So there's two options. If we did the recycled water with everything, that makes it almost $1 million splash pad. If we let the water go back into the earth and absorb down and do all that, then it's only like 450,000. There's something to do with the way it cycles and the pumps and everything, and the way it has to condition the water and all that. It might be 800,000 with it. So we clearly, if we did it, we're gonna go with the water going off into a kind of would be almost like a leach field. But again, we're not necessarily against it, but the problem, one of the obstacles we're gonna have is the funding has now changed. No one's fault here, no one's fault anywhere, and it could go back up again, who knows? Maybe it's part of the overall assessment they did with the grants, and they may start going back up again. But as of right now, at this moment, the funding is way down, and we're stuck doing what we can do. We can do little things, so the plan is, get the staging area in, and then get, maybe that's where I sit down and talk to the Johns and the people who want to meet and figure out what's most important. Do we want to do 4 pickleball courts in the concrete and get that that rubbery green material, so when people fall, they bounce rather than break something. You know, do we wanna do a dog park out there, a better dog park? Do we want to put in, now she wants a spa. You're not getting a
No,
spa, okay, we're done with that.
I have ideas, but you know.
No, and I have no problem asking for ideas, because that's what we want. We want you guys to, you know, as a community, look at the park and know what you want, you know, when you go there. It's just, part of it's gonna have to fall into the guidelines of what we're able to afford right now. And it might be, it's going to be, either way, it's going to be phases. It's gonna be a staging area, then it's gonna be a locker room. And then the other niceties that come with that, and what those end up being, is what we all will have to decide together, what we can afford and what we can do. Do we have any questions?
You're talking multiple grants for each state.
Not necessarily multiple grants, same grant, multiple stages. After this one closes out, then apply again and apply again. Yes.
Gail,
Sorry.
the grandmas, they call them, in course, they seem to have a pretty good time once a week at the splash pad.
Oh, yeah, and I think he went through Heritage Funds.
Well, they did it like 4 years ago, they applied for the money, so the money was
there then.
easier and more
Yeah, and they
plentiful.
did a small, so there is, I'll tell you one thing that I will take the blame on, and I have no problem telling anybody this. When I started, it was day 2 when I met John. It was partially John's fault. Has nothing to do with John, actually, I'm just being funny. So, when we came and we were looking at the plans, I took the idea that State Parks originally had for the one by the Cotton Gin. I believe, by me not being involved and sitting down with John and everybody, I think they made it so insane that it could have been scaled down quite a bit. So let me give you this example. The feds, because the feds funded this, dictate or mandate that adults have there's gonna be a room in the bathrooms where you have adult diaper changing area. So there's some of the standards they put on there were so blown out of proportion that in hindsight, I kind of wish we had sat down and said, okay, let's go ahead and, you know, do like we did like with Public Works, and we know what we want, let's make a parking area, and then let's just make a, you know, we could have done this, but I was learning as I go, and I went with what they wanted off the, I keep calling it the Cotton Gin property.
It was.
So, you know, we probably could have scaled it down some, but at least when you get, the problem with that though, is when you get grants, you have to fall under the ADA guidelines. So there's all kinds of little issues. I just wish we could have scaled it down some, but this is what they wanted. They are the people providing the grant. So, it's going to be very nice, you know, it's gonna be a great addition to Bouse. It's gonna be, it'll bring in more people because it's, you know, where it's at and the way it's gonna be set up. I know a lot of people will utilize it, so it's exciting, it's happening. And it's not a problem, it's going to happen. It's just how we're going to break it down after that initial one and go forward. We're just gonna have to decide as a group. You know, whether it's a splash pad or whether it's, pickleball courts, you know, whatever it may be.
Do they have shower facilities in Quartzsite? One of the concerns is, you know, our visitors using the shower. Do they
Yes.
have showers in?
Yes,
Do they have a problem with that? I'm just
Well,
curious.
they have a camp post who's
they
there.
got a camp post, parking lot, everything.
Is it a restroom, shower, facility, combination?
Yeah.
And when Kirk, I know people in here that do know, but does everybody know what he's talking about when he talks about the Cotton Gin project? Okay.
It's the door, garage door place.
No, well, it is now, but what happened is,
I think I thought everyone knew, sorry.
no, I know some do, but I just wanna make sure everybody did. So, the land was owned by, Norm, the mayor of Quartzsite.
The land was owned by Norm from Quartzsite, Norm Simpson, and he wanted to sell it. And State Parks was working to purchase it from him. And they were going back and forth. Again, this is the kind of stuff that's hard, right? Because and I'll take blame when it's ours, but there's only so much we can do when we're dealing with the state and their money. But there was infighting within the state parks and the OHV community or whatever committee they have. And they were concerned that it looked bad if the state was taking state money and building a state park. Because if they would have done it, it was going to be a state park. It would have been a new state park in Arizona. while all this infighting was going on for months and months and months and months, State Parks, Mickey and, what's the other, Matt, came out in our boardroom to do this public meeting to talk about ideas. And I had just learned information like the evening before, so I went up before the meeting started to let them know, guys, we got a problem, because the land sold last night. Can't blame anybody else, huh?
There was another problem that it went through 4
Hey, wait,
phases.
I know you've been involved with this, so let everybody hear you. They make me hold the microphone.
It went through 4 phases, and at the very last one, the one gal that was appointed by the governor rejected it. And they had just got rid of the director and got a new guy, and he couldn't stand up to her. And 6 months later, they got that area in Lake Havasu where the new boat dock and all that stuff is.
Riviera.
And that was her idea, to go there instead. So we were almost there. It was 4 times.
Yeah, to Ron's point, that makes me think, we have the Buckskin State Park upriver, and we have the River Island Market, and where the new staging area is. That's all state lands that's leased, and they had a concessioner in the park and for the market. I didn't get involved in time to try and do anything about what happened in the park. I did get involved, and I refer to it as saving River Island Market, because the state parks at that time, the lease was a 40-year lease with the concessioner, and the state's position was, your responsibility is to put it back the way you found it, and that's what they wanted them to do. And they're gonna demo everything. They demoed everything they had in the park. Now, the concessionaire, he's a businessman. He moved across the river and now has a beautiful facility at Big Bend on the California side. So we don't get that tax revenue. California does, because state parks eliminated all that in the park. They were gonna tear down River Island Market, and when I heard about it, I got involved, got Sonny Borelli as our state senator involved, some other people, and we managed to nurse that along for about 4 years. They finally got a long-term lease, and it's actually now sold to a new person. So, and I don't know, you guys live in Bouse. I can tell you in the upriver community, as I explained to Sonny Borelli back then and to the state parks, every little communities are like ecosystems, right? Everything works, and if you pluck something out of an ecosystem, it can damage the whole thing. If you would have plucked River Island Market out of the ecosystem of river, it would have been a problem, because people depend on that. And so I'm happy that it's there. It's been rehabbed and brought up to date, and I think it'll be there now for a long time. But we deal every day with ADOT, state parks, and at the end of the day, we have to deal with them and be friendly with them and be friends, because we need their support. That's the way it's structured, right? Government, they get to take a lot of our money, and then we hope they give us enough back that we can do stuff. And so we're at their mercy on a lot of things. Doesn't mean we're not working at it every day. I heard people talking about roads. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. I'm at the top of that list. And this isn't what I came here to talk to you about, but I gotta share this with you, because Kurt was talking about how the cost has gone up and the money available has gone down. I was just a couple of weeks ago in Sierra Vista, Arizona for a few nights at a conference. And I say nights because the days are county business, but the nights are usually mine, and when I'm gone, they're not. So, but we were there for this conference, and they had the chief financial officer of ADOT did a great presentation. She was kind of fun to listen to, but she did lots of charts and graphs. And they show how the state revenues that ADOT has to work with are going like this over like a 20-year period. The cost of, and we talk about inflation, asphalt, oil products, anything to do with roads, the cost is going like this. So you're looking at that graph and you're like, well, how's it ever gonna work? But the state of Arizona, and I hate taxes. I said this at the conference. I got to speak about the Vicksburg Road project. And at the end of it, I said, look, I hate taxes. I wish we did, but that's how we function as government, right? And they haven't raised the gas tax in Arizona in over 30 years. We're one of the few states, I think there's only a couple others that haven't raised it within the last 10. So we're still at like 18 cents a gallon for the gas tax, but all these costs are going up. but the legislature doesn't wanna raise any taxes, and I get it, but just like everything else, if the money's not coming in, then the available money's gonna be lower. So I'm okay with that, but I just want people to understand that that's what's happening. Because our funding for our local roads is based on highway user fund revenue. That comes from the state. A large part of it comes from the gas tax, our portion of it. We get that, and then we get some money for vehicle registration. But that's the money we have available, so when that money doesn't go up, or even if it stays level, the costs are going up. So, you know, we're kind of stuck on what we're able to do and how much we can do. But the same is gonna be true with the parks, and we're gonna keep pushing. I hate to use the word fighting because it sounds all aggressive, but we're gonna continue to push and lobby and encourage the state in every way we can to continue to fund these projects. So that's kind of where we're at. But again, were there any other questions? We've got a shill.
So are CDBG grants still available, the community development block grants? Because that's how we did some improvements years ago at the Bouse Park. The restroom facility we have now, that was all CDBG. The big Ramada Pavilion we have, that was CDBG.
So that's the one they lost the 3 million, I just didn't wanna say it.
Oh.
But we,
So I know the county gets it every third year or fourth year?
every third year. So CDBG is Community Development Block Grant. And John's, we do get it, we as the county government get it every third year. And that's because different counties do it differently, the geographic areas. Some split it up every year, some of the bigger ones where there's more money, they can spread it around, and they do that. In La Paz County, as long as it's existed, we rotate it. So Town of Parker gets it 1 year, Town of Quartzsite gets it 1 year, we get it 1 year. And but it's down to a couple $100,000. In today's world, I mean, again, that's a lot of money, I get, I mean, I'd like to have a couple $100,000 handed to me, but when you're, these projects, it's not a ton, but, we're using that money right now to rehab the Don T Pavilion and put air conditioning in and do some other things so people can use it year round. But, so we're using that money right now, so probably a year from now, it'll be time for us to be looking at what project do we wanna do next, cause you have to be ready ahead of time to get it in line. So if we have ideas where that would work, maybe we can do that out here. It also depends on the poverty areas, and their numbers make no sense. I'm just telling you right now, if you live here and you saw their numbers, you wouldn't understand it. I don't understand it, it doesn't make sense, but we have to work within those confines too, on the qualifications.
And that one's also based off of 51% ADA compliance. So the WACOG is based off of whatever project we're doing has to be 51% going towards improving for, you know, people with disabilities and accessibility. So we threw in some air conditioners and then redid the bathrooms and made it to where, you know, it makes it kind of a tough guidelines on that one to use it. John, I know you have a question. No?
Come on,
You
John.
guys got a grant you could donate some turkeys? We're short on turkeys.
No, I
So
might not.
I feel like we're just in kind of a weird spot. The current administration is 8-10 months in, I don't even know what month we're in anymore, but, and I feel like things are shifting around, and it's not, I don't believe it's dire, you know, future on the grants, it's just right now, we hit just kind of a low spot. But we will cycle through it, the only difference is it just takes us we have to cycle through as opposed to doing it all at once. And it kind of makes it difficult because one of the most expensive things is locating a construction company and then leaving and then locating them again every time, you know, so that's kind of a pain, but we have to do what we have to do.
The longer it takes, the more the cost has to be too.
Yes, it's true.
It ain't going down.
Yeah.
My question is, through this whole thing, with the splash pad or whatever, I know that you guys can't answer this, but in the long run, what is it gonna cost to maintain all this? You know, I mean, we're talking a lot of maintenance, and we're also talking, you know, as far as, just don't know. My biggest thing is the maintenance, and where are we gonna get the water? Everywhere, I mean, we're right now, we're talking, people are talking about all the wells and stuff like that around this valley, and just crazy. And I don't know, I mean, we're just gonna
Next
be
question.
like pissing in up a tree,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I didn't say that though.
Yeah.
So, that is one thing I've learned since working at the parks, is that, the quality of the water in the wells aren't always great on pumps. You know, so that's gonna be something to think about, cause there's gonna have to be able to push the water in the air and do fun things with water, and I can tell you the manganese, I'm not really sure what the Bouse wells, what solids they have, the problems are out here.
They're horrible.
Yeah, pretty much all of them, so those are never good on pumps, so you're right. But what I feel is that if you get your most vocal, prominent people together, either this or chamber meeting or something, or we can sit down and have a discussion, we'll just make a good decision and we'll go forward, and I will bring the options, whether they're pickleball courts or, you know, things for the community, kind of a combined, there's an option for a basketball court combined with pickleball, so, you know, multi-use. There's things we can do that will last longer without as much maintenance, that people can still use, and there can still be, you know, things you can do. But I'm not throwing away the idea of a splash pad, I'm just saying, if that doesn't work, the community can talk as a group and try to determine what the best route is going forward.
And the important thing, the hard part for me, and what I would appreciate the help on is, tonight, I'm seeing a lot of head nodding when we talk about maybe splash pads gonna be a maintenance issue, or it's gonna cost a lot of money, what else could we do? I'm pretty sure if I went over to a school meeting and sat with that audience, I'm gonna hear a lot of cheering going on for splash pad. And I know the school has grown substantially in numbers, right? I mean, it's still Bouse is a small community, but the school has, well, it's ebbed and flowed as long as I've been in office, but they were down to like 15 or 17 kids a few years back, and now they're in the 60s, the last I heard. I don't know if that's still holding, but, you know, we're bringing in business, they're bringing in kids. So we do want to think about what's going to benefit the youth in the community, but we want to be balanced and have the community support for it, because it will be a maintenance issue. One of the things you learn about grants, and that's a very important lesson, that's what every grant's like that. It's much easier to get money to build something new. That's fine, but when you want to maintain it, and I use this example, I'm not picking on the town of Parker. I lived in the town of Parker proper for 32 years and was very involved with town stuff. And you know, way back in the day, the town of Parker, little town of Parker, built an Olympic swimming pool. Full-on diving boards, I mean, it was a beautiful pool. They could put on meets there. They paid for it with a grant. Well, 20 years later, when the liner's coming loose, the pool's leaking, this is happening, they have to maintain that. I was on the Parks Board back then, and we took it on as a project to figure out how to help fund the pool, and all the maintenance that was needed. And our report back to the council was, we can come up with a plan to pay for the summer programs through the fees that we're gonna charge and do the lessons and whatever else it's gonna be. We can come up with money to pay the lifeguards and that program during the summer months. But sorry, council, you're gonna have to find the money to pay for that hole in the ground throughout the year, because that needs chemicals all year long. It needs filtration all year long. It's very, and there's no grant money for that. So to that point, we can build it with a grant, but we have to be prepared to maintain it. And if we build it, we will. That will be our job, so. Anything else? Yes,
Are you, if we're finished with this part, can we ask you about something else?
I suppose.
No, okay.
I don't know, I'm not in charge.
And we
That's
asked
what
about
you're here
other
for, to
things,
answer
Bart.
questions.
Okay, huh?
I just was gonna ask, are there other projects that are coming around for Bouse in the near future, or any cleanup jobs, or anything else you know of coming?
Cleanup jobs, I can tell you right now, but I'm gonna be out here on the 1st of December for the chamber meeting and talk about specifically that stuff, the cleanups and the blight. But since you asked, I will tell you, it will never be enough for the community, and I get that, because Kurt and I were talking about this. This happens to him on a micro scale at the county parks. Every time you fix the worst problem, that just then shines a light on the next worst problem, because now that's the one everybody's focused on. I don't know if anybody else thinks it's a good thing, but I'm proud of how many cleanups we've done since I've been in office. I don't know that they were happening a lot before that, but we've worked really hard at it. And we may only get a couple done a year, but that's a couple each year. And I'd like to do more, but when we do, that costs money. And the idea is that when we do the work, we put a lien on the property, and then hope someday we get that money returned. What I would like to see is a structure where we can do that faster, and there should be legislation this year. I don't know that it'll pass, but I told you I was in Sierra Vista a couple weeks ago, and then a week ago or so I was in Yuma for the county supervisors meetings, where we create the legislation that we want to promote as counties in the coming year. Gila County? No, not Gila County. Anyway, one of the, Supervisor Humphrey, yeah, it is Gila County, proposed, and he and I have talked many times because they have a very similar problem. And it's hard to do because it's so expensive. But they're gonna try and run legislation this year that will set up things differently, so when we do the tax deeded properties, that the cost of the cleanup is included in there. Now, I don't wanna pick on anybody, but I'm just gonna tell you the fact, we got burned on one. And you were saying how beautiful it is, and it is, but I don't know if anybody knows that the county got burned on that deal. Because the property, the person purchasing the property knew we were gonna clean it up, even asked me how much that would probably be so they could be prepared to pay for it when it closed. And then they managed to get it closed before the lien got filed, so we didn't get any money. So all that does is push us back further in our availability to do more, because we can only do so much with the money that's available, like everything else, right? It's always about the money. But we have got a couple, I was talking to Mike from Community Development this morning, because we're talking about coming out for the first, and he's gonna be reporting on the ones that are in the pipeline right now to get cleaned.